Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So we have a very special guest today, Miss Marina O'Rourke. Marina is a fractional CIO with Tsource IT, specializing in strategy and change management. Marina is a seasoned franchise technology executive with experience developing and running technology teams in franchise brands, including Subway, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, and ServiceMaster. Marina's reputation is as a collaborative leader who works with her good grief, what is it? Counterparts to develop and implement strategies and tactics that drive profitable growth. Marina is currently on the board of the Central Florida chapter of the Society for Information Management, is a member of the Women's Franchise Committee with the IFA, and has led work groups with Restaurant Technology Network. Whew! I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Very honored. Thank you.
Good. Marina, you've worked with some really impressive brands. Were you always passionate about franchise?
No, in fact, it's kind of an interesting story. My husband and I both ended up losing our jobs at the same time, not long after we were married. And Subway was looking for a project manager, and they made me an offer, and I was hesitant to take it because it was less money than I had been making at my previous job. And I told my husband, I just don't know if I'm going to take it. It's not as much money. And he said, well, I think I need to correct you. Technically, you're making zero now. So it's a lot more money than you're making. And it made me stop and think. And I said, you're right, dear. And, since I've got the opportunity to bring income in, I need to take this job. And so I thought, well, I'll take it. I'll keep looking. And little did I know that many, many, many years later, that I would still be in franchising and would have fallen in love and did not even know what a wonderful brand I was stepping into and how storied it was and what a wonderful person Fred was. I was very, very lucky to get to work with him. His organization was very flat. I started out as a POS project manager, became the director of retail technology. And as the director, I was the highest technology person in the organization. I was not a CIO. So I spent a lot of time with Fred, and he was could be very challenging. He would challenge you. But it made me a better person and a better leader. And I just became so passionate about helping small business owners. So that's how I got into franchising.
I really like this story, Marina, because very few people go to franchising deliberately. It usually is a story like this. I love the way your husband handled that, right? That
It's
we
smart.
oftentimes compare to what we had that we thought was perfect, or this picture in our head of what the perfect job is. And he course corrected you by saying, wait a second, this is an opportunity. See how it, unfolds. Yes, it may not be as much money as what you used to make, but it's sure a lot more than we're making right now. So it was a beautiful course correction. So I want to talk about Fred DeLuca, if that's okay.
Oh, yes. I love talking about Fred.
Fred is an icon in the world of franchising.
Yes.
And he's mentored many. You had first-hand, day-to-day interaction. Tell me about that. You said he was challenging. What did you learn from him? Tell us some stories.
What I really learned from him is that if the franchisees will embrace it and are willing to spend money on it, then it's probably a good idea. And if they're not, then you got to think really hard about what you're willing to push them to do. And you know, that there was a little bit of a, you know, it's some way it was kind of always like, well, you know, as a franchisee, well, what am I going to pay for? It's like, well, you're gonna pretty much pay for everything, right? That's part of the deal that you sign up for. But Fred was really cognizant about the things that he would require, and it better be darn good. And so that's where I really learned to make sure that I had a strong technology council. It's where I made sure that I would figure out who is the most difficult person who is going to challenge this the most in the franchise community. And I'm going to ask them to be on the technology council, because if they become an advocate, they're going to teach me and the rest of us in the technology team how to sell it to the rest of the franchisee community. And if we can't get them on board, then there's probably a darn good reason. Not every naysayer in every franchise community is necessarily going to come around, right? And Subway had a huge franchisee community, but you can't just go to the most successful franchisees, because if you're going to do something, implement a new point of sale system, you need the single unit owner and you need the multi-unit owner. And you know, it's a heck of a lot easier for the guy with 10 stores and 3 general managers than the single guy who's still working with his direct family members. But I also really learned what a wealth generator franchising could be. And when I was there, we were just really starting to get second generation coming along and starting to buy stores, and to see the kids that had worked with their families, like some names that people might know were like the Grewals, right? To see these guys coming up, you know, and starting to get their own stores by buying stores from their parents, you know, didn't really see parents giving this stuff away. These kids learned that they had to earn it. Excuse me. and that was really exciting. And, you know, kids who had the benefit of maybe going to get a master's degree and really understood finance and data were still making the choice to come in and be entrepreneurs because it had transformed their families. So it was an incredible experience. And when I got the opportunity to start to go to the IFA, I can't tell you how many people would tell me. I remember going to the first time attendees meeting and reception, and I think Lane Fisher kicked it off. And when I said, you know, I had worked for Subway, and so many people, oh, Fred mentored me. Fred, I mean, he loved to help people. And I made a lot of good friends there. I developed a lot of wonderful franchisee relationships. I still know Fred's sister to this day, and I love seeing her at the IFA. And then people like Lisa Oak, who've gone on to other wonderful brands like Big B Coffee. It's you know, it was, I truly am so fortunate that they made me a job offer, because it changed my life. And it gave me a passion for helping small business owners that has stuck with me. And I still have a huge passion around that.
I love that story. You seem to have had a franchise make a huge impact on you in your life. What do you think the impact is that you've made on franchise?
I truly believed that I have helped franchise brands and franchisees understand how technology can become a strategic asset and can really help drive profitability. You know, we all know today data is king. And this is also something that Fred really understood. Fred did not have an accountant when he started out. Fred developed his own systems. He had something called the Wiser and the control sheet. And they were very simple processes to follow. You didn't have to be an accountant. And, in the restaurant business, there are really two things that drive profitability that are, you have to control the cost of goods, and you've got to control the cost of labor. And in the restaurant business, it's pennies.
Yeah.
It's every 15 minutes of labor that you keep somebody on that you probably should have cut them.
Mhm.
It's every pound of meat that you lose because employees are being nice to their friends and discounting sandwiches, or some of the ones that are less scrupulous that are carrying it out of the back door on the way home. But you need data to understand those things. That comes from data. And I wanted franchisees to know that information in time to make a difference. And so being able to do things like bring business intelligence tools, video surveillance that would give pop-ups to managers when something that was rung in at less than a price than it should be, or the drawer opened and there was no sale, so that they could deal with it in the moment. And when franchisees started to embrace that technology, I feel like that's how I started to get back to them. One of the things that we did at Subway that was very powerful, and this was because of the size of the brand, when the payment card industry came out with payment card industry or PCI compliance, we actually went to the PCI Council and we said, if we install encrypted card readers in our store, will you essentially give us PCI compliance? And that's the shortcut for a longer story, and they did. And working with the Independent Purchasing Cooperative, which was the sister organization of Subway, and a wonderful woman, Jan Reese, we were able to get the cost of those readers covered through some dollars from some suppliers, and get them installed in every single location, and really made the life so much easier for our franchisees. If you've ever had to answer a PCI audit questionnaire, you will understand what a big deal that was, because to answer those, the average business owner doesn't know the answer to those questions, and it can be devastating. So, yeah.
Here's what I'm noticing about you, Marina. You have this really beautiful ability as a critical thinker. You're able to see, let's call it blind spots, issues, problems, potential problems. You seem to see it and then come up with some kind of technology solution to overcome that challenge. So would you agree that's kind of how your mind works?
Yes, I really consider myself at the heart of what I do to be a problem solver. Everybody loves fun technology. iPhones are wonderful. Apple Watches are great. Netflix is great. But, franchise brands don't have $1 million to develop technology, right? You have to solve the problem at a price point that franchisees can afford. And you have to recognize when you're going, what's a bell and a whistle versus what do you really need. And part of it is you also have to sell what are oftentimes imperfect solutions to franchisees who are consumers, and to franchisors who are consumers who are used to an iPhone, which is great. The iPhone is perfect because millions and millions and millions of dollars go into it, and some of the best technology minds in the world, right? They're also very, very expensive devices, right? So part of it is working with franchisees and including them in solving the problem. I don't try to solve the problem by myself, but I try to winnow down potential solutions, right? I don't want them to They need to spend their time as operators running their business. But how do I help narrow the field of all of the possibilities or bring a potential solution and then engage franchisees to help pressure test it to see if, do they agree? Is this really solving a problem or not? Is it a reasonable price, right? And then part of what I also do is I really try to work with the franchisor that I work for and make sure that they put the appropriate amount of skin in the game. I really feel that franchisors have a real responsibility to their franchisees. And I take that responsibility very seriously because franchisees pay a royalty fee to the franchisor because they expect us, when we are a franchisor, to help them with great marketing, with great operational support, and with great technology. And you don't deliver a technology solution without help from marketing and operations. And you really need operations because it ain't going into the store if operations doesn't understand it, doesn't endorse it. It's, you know, it's like working on a limited time offer in a restaurant. You know, somebody comes up with a great food ideas, marketing figures out how to sell it, operations figures out how to make sure that everybody can execute it in the store. And in technology, we make sure how it hits the POS, how it gets into the third-party systems and online ordering and your menu boards and kiosks and everything else. And it takes working together and collaborating to execute those solutions. Whether it starts with marketing or it starts with operations or it starts with technology, those three departments have got to be married at the hip.
I'm so excited. You know, one of my favorite words is collaboration, because you're right. There's so many times that we are just silos, right?
Yeah.
And not talking to one another, and therefore whatever's being executed isn't at the optimal possibility, right? And who gets affected? Well, everyone does. The end user, the franchisee, the employees of the franchisee, the franchisor that now has to reinvent the second and third and fourth time. So there's magic in collaboration.
Yeah, especially with the franchisees. To me, that's, I mean, certainly you need to work with, you know, other folks in the franchisor, but you've got to include franchisees in everything you do. I really feel very strongly about that. And you also have to spend time in the operations. You know, you've got to understand how do things actually work in this. I'll give you a great example. We were testing out a point of sale solution at Tropical Smoothie, and it happened to use iPads for the KDS. The kids in the store were plugging their iPhones in and unplugging the KDS.
It's funny.
Oh my
God. We
God.
didn't think about that until you go in the store and you see how do people really deal with it in an actual living, breathing environment. You don't know. It can work great in the lab. Nobody in the lab was going to unplug the key. Yeah. They didn't know any better. They weren't trying to be jerks.
No, they were
Right.
being kids.
Right.
I have a burning question. I'm picking up this undertone, Marina, of advocacy, fighting for the underdog, and then, but with an element of like practicality,
Right.
integration. So
Yeah.
I've got to know if you agree and where this fight for the underdog began. Like, where did your passion for this advocacy and, you know, doing the right thing and fighting for the underdog, where did that begin?
Well, I will tell you where it really began. It began early in my career, when I was working for Unilever, which is where I got laid off from. They did a big reduction in force. And my first leadership group at Unilever loved me. They considered me an up-and-coming leader. My manager had tapped me as a successor. The director of my area loved me. The entire leadership rolled over, and me and my manager were like oil and water. And
Ow.
I was young and naive, and I thought the halo just followed me around. So,
Wow.
but what really, obviously, there was some changes that I needed to make, but my manager had such a tremendous opportunity to help me, to mentor me, to groom me, and he didn't do it. And other people in the organization didn't do it. And I was really upset when I lost that job. That was, but I realized that if someone had spent a little bit of time with me, it would have made a huge difference for me. I might have still lost my job, right? I'm not saying that wouldn't have happened, but I definitely could have learned some important things that would have maybe helped me be more effective in managing up, et cetera. And I vowed then that anytime I had the opportunity to help someone, that I would do it.
Wow.
And anyone who asks me will always get my help. A friend of mine recently was looking for a job, and I helped him. And he thanked me, and he said, do you know, out of everyone in my network, you're literally the only person who has made time for me, and you've done it more than once.
Wow.
And I said, of course, I think that's what you're supposed to do. And I especially love being able to mentor young women. I had the opportunity to hire a young lady at Service Master who was 7 months pregnant. And she said to me, don't worry, I won't take a lot of time off from my maternity leave. And I said, the heck you won't. I said, this is your first baby. I said, you are going to take every minute that is allotted to you, because I will never remember how long you took off, and you will never forget. And
Wow.
she told me, thank you for making me feel good about that, because that was such an important time in my life to get to bond with my first child. And so, and she was a dedicated, amazing employee. I mean, that wasn't a hard thing for me to do. It was absolutely the right thing to do. I could have pressured her. What would a couple of extra weeks done at the end of the day? We were already covering the role anyway before she started. So, it's important to be able to give back. And, I think as women, it's really important for us in particular, especially when we can help folks that are younger than us. If I can save someone one mistake that I've made, and that's one less mistake or hardship they have to go through, why not? Just because had to be a speed bump or a hurdle for me doesn't mean I want it to be for everyone. I would like to, I want to see women and men succeed, but let's face it, we still don't have enough of us at the highest levels of leadership. I think that franchising, I'm proud of franchising for what it does to recognize women. Being able to be part of the women's committee and work with amazing women, and being able to be part of the annual leadership conference and spotlighting women. And I will tell you that annual leadership conference is one of the best attended sessions at the IFA, and almost every one of the brand leaders comes to that. And we primarily have women on stage. So people are showing up, men and women, to learn from these amazing female leaders and getting to work with all women. We like to say we're the hardest working committee on the IFA, but I think the other committees might take a little bit of offense to that. But we have a lot of fun. We work hard, and we're proud of the work that we do. So I'm very grateful that I'm getting to spend a few years working on that great committee.
It's amazing. It's a wonderful committee, wonderful leadership, great vision that you
Yes.
have. I don't know how the heck you get on that committee. I think you have to have an inside scoop. So I'm volunteering. Marina, put me on the list. I'm happy to help in any way.
We do open up registrations every year, and we always keep a couple of alternates, and almost always we pull an alternate in. So I will make sure that I let you know where the application is, because it is a great committee to
It is.
be
And
a
I've
part
been
of.
to some of those annual meetings,
Yeah.
and you're hands down unbelievable. They're really, really good. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit. Talk about Tsource and everything you do for franchisors. I understand you're focusing on emerging franchisors or smaller franchisors, but tell us what you're.
Yes. Well, having had the absolute incredible fortune to work with large brands, I realized that one of the reasons that I was lucky enough to get to work for them is that they had reached a level of maturity that their technology did not always match. They oftentimes weren't where they needed to be with technology, and it created some friction with some franchisees. And I recognized that emerging and small brands, if they could be able to make investments earlier and get their technology strategy in place and start to build things that were scalable when they were smaller, that would help them become, and their franchisees, to become more profitable and to scale faster. I believe that when you've got really good technology strategy and great data, it becomes an asset the potential franchisees want to buy into. And when you can show how your use of data, especially, marketing data, your point of sale data, whatever business systems, your CRM, how that's helping drive profitability, that's a selling point to potential franchisees, and it helps your existing franchisees become more profitable. And so at Tsource, what we do is we provide fractional resources, especially CIOs. I had been working with Tsource doing some consulting, and I had the opportunity to work with a wonderful woman, Shannon Wilburn, and just between friends. And I proposed to Tsource that this was an incredible opportunity because we would start to get our foot in the door of a untapped market for technology, because let's face it, emerging and small brands don't have $250,000, $300,000 for a CIO. And a CIO can't do everything. You need somebody to be thinking about security and networking and systems and all of the things that you need to do in technology. And I said, if we can bring a fractional team where we can supplement their team, and we are willing to charge prices that these brands can afford, we can make a tremendous difference for the brands and their franchisees, and we can fill a niche that is pretty much untapped. And I'm excited because we are working with a number of brands now. We're getting brand recognition. And what we do is we bring top-notch technology leaders at prices that brands can afford. And we help build a roadmap, set priorities, manage projects. We can manage systems if you need it. We'll bring the right size resources for what you need. And we want you to spend money in the way that makes the most sense for the brand. We care about return on investment. We care about your profitability. We want you to implement a solution that's going to get you 10 years into the future, that's going to help you. If you've got 200 locations today, we don't want to put in a technology solution that supports 200 locations. We want to put one in that'll scale to 1,000. We don't want you to have to pay for 1,000, but you should be able to scale up. It should be easy to be able to leverage that technology. Technology doesn't have an infinite lifespan, but you can make choices that will help you grow and help you be profitable. And often technology, it's easy to make choices that are not the right choices. It's easy to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on the wrong choices. And that's what we want to afford. We want whatever money a brand has for us to help them use it judiciously and in a way that absolutely helps drive growth. And we want them to get to the point where they've grown enough that they don't need us anymore. If they want us to help them go find their next CIO, we will do that. We want to make sure that we give them a legacy of documentation and everything else that they need to be successful. But I want, my passion for franchising and for franchisees is how do we help, the ones that, help them in the early stages and really make a difference and help them grow. There are lots and lots of franchise brands that never make it to 100. I'm lucky enough to have worked for 3 of the largest brands in the franchise ecosystem. And there isn't probably a right number for how big a brand should be, and that's up to the brand leaders. But I want them I never want technology to be the thing that holds them back from growing.
So, Marina, what is one piece of advice? I mean, you are on the Women's Franchise podcast. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone first stepping into franchise? And what is one piece of advice that you would give someone who's been in franchise a while? Maybe
I'm sorry, I didn't let you finish there.
No, I added because I think I framed that wrong. And who is a woman, right? A woman first stepping into franchise and a woman who's already in franchise.
I will tell you, it's really the same piece of advice, and it's one of the smartest things that I ever allowed myself to do. And that is to never be embarrassed for not knowing something and always asking the question. I have found that a lot of times as grown-ups, we don't like to not understand something. And I find that too often people will just not understand and keep going. I am not embarrassed to say, I don't understand what that means. Can you please explain that to me? Because I can't know everything. And once I got over any shame or fear about that, I've learned so much. People are always willing to explain, and they almost never make you feel stupid for not knowing. And so, especially for women, I would really encourage women, don't be embarrassed to ask the question. It's the best way to find out what the answer is. And most people are more than happy to actually help you understand it. And it's a heck of a lot faster than trying to go back and go piece it together and figure it out yourself. I learned that from a very complicated financial report that I didn't understand. And I went to the people in finance and I said, well, I just must be stupid. I don't understand this. They said, no, actually, without you really knowing the background of the report, there's no way you would know, because we actually have to do blah, blah. And I'm like, I said, well, I certainly am glad I asked.
Absolutely. I hate for this conversation to end, ladies, especially being in the software business myself and having made a lot of those mistakes and watching franchisors make mistakes, especially young franchisors, either trying to develop something on their own and paying incredible amounts of money,
Yes.
or getting something off the shelf that isn't a good fit. I loved how you described it. It's right size technology, but it's also right fit technology for the issues that they have. So before we wrap up, I want to make sure people know how to get hold of you, Marina.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Certainly, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. There aren't very many Marina O'Rourke's, but you can always find me at marinao'rourke@gmail.com. So I will help anyone. If you are listening to this and you think I can help you, you are welcome to email me or reach out on LinkedIn. It would be my absolute pleasure. And I want to thank you both. This has been a wonderful conversation. You are both wonderful women, and it's great to interact with you. And I love the podcast. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much.
We love doing it. We love getting to know women on a more intimate level and highlighting them. And you were definitely the highlight of our day. So thank you, Marina. And Tracy, you always have such wonderful final words. I always push it off on you, but you just have a wonderful way of wrapping things up.
Ladies, can I tell you, this has got to be one of my most favorite podcasts ever. I have totally enjoyed this conversation. Marina, I adore you. So what I got out of this conversation is that there are less women in tech than men. There are less women in franchise than men. And you literally sit on the crossroads where these two meet. There's no one better than you for this role. You're a perfect combination between heart and problem solver. You bring yourself to this space in such a unique, genuine, authentic way. It's truly impressive. And that's totally what I got out of it. So thank you for
Wow.
being the show. And you are amazing. You're
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you. That was very kind of you.
You are amazing, Marina. Thank you for sharing your heart and your advice. Very, very helpful to those that are listening. And to the rest of you listening into the show today, the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged. Make sure to share this video with others so they can learn a little bit about technology, a little bit about franchising, and a little bit about how all of that crosses roads, as Tracy mentioned. Like, share, comment, and of course, we'll see you next week on another episode.
Bye.